Today's guest is Jelena Holodkova, who is a human design guide and a workshop facilitator. She dived deep into this modality to help people navigate change, whether that's unexpected or long time coming change. In her sessions, she uses human design, principles of psychology, and everything she's learned so far through experiences to guide others to a place of greater self acceptance, a place of greater awareness, and a place of greater self love. So, Jelena, thank you very much for being on here. How are you doing today?
Hi, Roscoe. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here, and I'm doing great today. How are you?
I'm doing good as well. Kind of in that 8 out of 10 range, which is my ideal. Like, there's still some room for improvement, but all in all, good. So thank you for asking. So I'd love to dive into your story and hear how you got into doing human design and where you are at with all of that. So floor is yours to share that piece.
Sure. First, anyone who gets into this work, anything to do with spirituality and the greater self-understanding, acceptance, and love, has had some major shifts. So did I at the age of 28. I got married to my partner, who I was with for 6 years prior to that. But during my honeymoon, we broke up, and it was really, really painful. So that was the first step that really, when there is a lot of pain and when there is a lot of darkness, it really makes you question whether was there anywhere before that I missed something, or I haven't listened to my intuition and actually I knew something was off, or was I just living in autopilot? So that was the first glimpse of me diving into more spiritual work. And second moment came a few years after, when I had a burnout in my corporate career and decided to leave my life in London, sell my house, sell my things, pack my bags, and I went traveling for 2 years. So I nomaded and lived in different countries, which was an amazing time. Throughout this time, I started studying psychology. I started to try to better understand myself and those around me, what motivates us to do what we do, and how change impacts us. Why is it change that's leading us to transformation? And why is change what we fear the most? Why is change something that is constant, yet we are so scared to change and welcome change into our life? I discovered human design as a tool of self-awareness for myself. It really helped me to understand myself better. It really didn't tell me much new things about myself, but it explained me why I am the way I am and why I'm driven by by the things I'm driven, and how to best use my energy. So having studied all that, I actually then started sharing by invitation. So people were inviting me to either lead workshops on that or sessions. And immediately, actually, the start of my business was very organic, and actually I didn't do much, which felt great to me. And it's part of my human design. I need to be invited to things. I'm a projector, if anyone is familiar with human design. So it just felt so organic. And I thought, wow, that's easy. Like, all I need to do is to be in my alignment. And to an extent, it's definitely the case. So it grew in the last 2 years, it grew exponentially. I am now I'm booked up for one-on-one readings. I do a lot of guest speaking, retreats. I organize them myself. I am invited to be the human design guide of the retreat. So it kind of all happened without me having to have a strategy for the first time in my life. Whereas before that, I was in strategic roles in corporate life, in financial technology sector in London. So it was all about strategy, and suddenly everything was about flow. And now I feel is the point where I think the two need to combine. And I think in order for me to get to the next stage, I really need to become a little bit more strategic and see where maybe my, like, letting it just pan out has led me to a few challenges that I'm facing right now.
So, well, first and foremost, thank you for sharing that. And like, it's such a beautifully summarized, Cole's Notes version of obviously, a lot of time and a lot of different experience. And one of the things that stood out for me kind of as a through line across everything you shared is this kind of pattern of things like break down so that they can build back up, right? Like the relationship, but then that led to something great, and then the burnout, but then that led to something great. Now the flow, but then that's about to lead to something great again, right? It's like things break down so they can merge better and bigger than they were before. So just curious, like what lands for you from that reflection?
Yeah, that's beautifully summarized. Definitely, when things break apart, it's hard to see when you're in the midst of them that they're actually falling together or they're coming together. It's definitely the case, and it's easier to see it in hindsight because hindsight has 20/20 vision, right? And this is why actually that's the subject that I'm very excited about, because I really appreciate the things that happened that were probably the hardest, not probably, they were the hardest things in my life, that then something beautiful bloomed out of it. And it wouldn't have happened if those things didn't happen, for sure. It would just, I would probably still live my autopilot life in London and have 2.5 kids. And, it's beautiful way as well, but I know it's not my way. Deep inside, I have this deeper inner knowing that it was meant to happen exactly the way it did. So yes, I completely agree with you, and actually gonna use that in my work as well.
Absolutely. I'm glad one question into it, you're already taking something out of it. So that is cool with me. Okay, perfect. So then what I would love to dive into is you mentioned there were certain challenges that you're experiencing now, right? Kind of post of this flow growth, you're at the ceiling. So what are the challenges that you are experiencing right now in your own words?
I think because before, the things that have to, so I studied human design, and suddenly I have a queue of people who are ready to pay for it, and I didn't really have to do advertising for it. It just happened, which is great. And I didn't do the traditional social media route. I actually, it was happening within the community in Mexico where I live. So it's a beautiful town in coast of Oaxaca, where it's very easy to run a workshop, do a reading, and just then word of mouth, and it just happened organically, which is great for any business anywhere. But right now I'm feeling, after a couple of years of doing it this way, that it's just that, right? So I can continue doing it, but I feel like there is more if I put more structure to it. So what if I did actually start having an integrated marketing strategy on social media, for example, and then also not being fearful of making bigger investments on any sort of advertising, and actually investing more in order to have it more stable, and then, as opposed to be constantly busy with readings and one-offs, because everything right now is one-off. I don't have an offering that's long-term and that commits me to a long-term partnership or long-term cooperation. So I don't coach people, and that's actually a place where I don't want to go, and I don't know why. I don't know why I'm resistant, because sessions, it is in a way through human design offering a reflection and better understanding of themselves. But I have this resistance of calling myself a coach or going that route. There is something in there. Another thing is because I didn't plan any of this, it just happened. So I am resistant to make a plan, because then maybe more magical things are going to happen if I don't plan. But again, is it blocking me at this point, where in the beginning it was helping me? Right now, is that still relevant? Is it still serving me this way? In essence, to sum up, what's the issue is that everything I have is in the now. I create momentum, I have readings, I do a workshop, I organize the retreat, and everything is happening. But the moment I stop, it stops. So I just have to, I'm in a constant energy of doing things, which I enjoy, but at the same time, it's very day to day. It's very in the now. So I'm just wondering whether there is another way of doing it.
Got it. Okay. So there's a lot there, and I'm just going to reflect back to you what I heard, and then we can kind of explore that further. So is that okay with you?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So one was, okay, so I've always been in the flow of things, and I never needed to actually do anything to get to this point. It just kind of organically came to me. So then there's these narratives that now end up showing up as what if. So, well, what if I did have structure? What if I did have an integrated marketing strategy? What if I invested in the business? What if I got busier than I am right now as a result of those things? Right. Then there was this resistance around coaching. Right. So there's, what if I just do more readings, but then should I go into coaching? And then there's something unclear about why is it that I resist coaching? And then there is, well, this has worked so well, and I know that part of my design is to be invited. If I add strategy to it, is that going to ruin the magic of the flow? Like, is the plan actually going to screw that up? Right. So now I'm in the state of limbo because I don't know again. Right. And it sounds to me like some of the effects of that is like you're kind of on a hamster wheel right now. Like you're recognizing, well, things are just coming to me, so I have to keep running in order to maintain them. If I stop running, then everything stops. So do you feel like that's an accurate representation of where you're at?
Yes, it's spot on.
Okay. So in that case, what do you think is the connection between all of them from your interpretation?
So me being in flow, and it has worked for me. So why fix it if it ain't broke? One. Coaching, I think resistant because that would be a longer term commitment. And yeah, maybe it's a commitment issue to what I do in a way.
So tell me more about that. What do you mean a commitment issue?
So it has worked, and it worked marvelously well, and I enjoyed the ride so much. And commitment issue being that if I decide that, okay, now I'm a coach, then I put a label on it, then also people sign up and there is a long-term commitment to that. If I have a plan, I have to commit to it, even if I don't want to, and that breaks down the flow of things, which I'm enjoying too much to maybe break up with the flow. Really
Okay.
don't want to break up with the flow.
So, well, first and foremost, is that really true?
Which part?
All of it. Like, if I break up with the flow and that's the only option that I have, then it's all going to fall apart. Or two, if I do have a long-term offering, that's going to negatively affect the flow that I'm experiencing.
They are not what is true. It's a perspective. They are not an absolute truth, but also, of course, as everything else, I think there was resistance to going into a different version of my life before, where I was overworked, I was burned out, I was sticking to the plan, I had a checklist, and I did my best to check every box. If there was a box, I would check it. If there was a spreadsheet, I would make sure, debit and credit adds up to it. Like it was so much the opposite of my life right now, and that caused me a lot of pain. So I think, yeah, maybe I'm between two extremes. I'm still working. I'm still doing things. They just feel with ease. They're not easy because I still have to work for them, but they just unravel in a way that's not exhausting me, and I enjoy being in that space as well.
So if you knew that adding structure would not bring you back to burnout and boxed in, would you add it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So is this really about losing flow, or is it really about the fear that if I add any structure, I'm going to go back to the burnout I experienced before?
There's definitely an element of that. And it's both unconscious and conscious. I don't want that, and I know it, and I am very cautious of working with my energy levels in a way that doesn't deplete me.
Right. So there is a very real and legitimate PTSD like fear of, if I bring this stuff from my old life into the new, into the current, I'm risking losing all of the things that I've gained since then.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what comes up for you when I share that?
Clarity.
So what's more clear?
It's clear the cause and effect relationship. It has always been clear, because I would even say it, I'm not doing it because I don't want that. But also now it's clear that it's also in effect preventing me from some things that would benefit me as well.
Okay. So let's dive a bit deeper into that. If we call it an umbrella term, like this is a commitment issue, right? Like you said it yourself, maybe it's a commitment issue, and that's really the umbrella term that houses the PTSD of, I don't want to go through burnout again. Right? If I commit to more structure, that potentially could mean burnout. How is that a problem inside of your business right now?
In a way, it is limited to where I am. I can do online readings, but I don't advertise it that much online. Of course, I have an online presence, but really where most of my clients come from is from word of mouth and people who are around me. And also, so do my collaborations. It's mainly people within community, because I do enjoy face-to-face time after years in lockdown. It's quite a nice change. So, but not having structures to have growth online, to explore other channels, to establish it more solidly, then means that I am actually, in a way, only can build my business around here. And if I move, which I have done quite also and plan to do maybe in the future, then I have to then create a momentum and do the same thing in different places. So it makes my business not sustainable. And yeah, not sustainable really sums it up. I could look for other words, but that's the main thing. It's very much in the now. It's I do now, and then this results in bookings, events, workshops, guest speaking, and so on. And then there are readings and so on. But it's kind of like, if I stop constantly doing that, there is no offering that's longer term and more secure.
Okay. So if we unpack that a bit further, my fear of structure is right now creating a business that isn't sustainable, that actually isn't secure because it's conditional on where I live, which when I exhaust my community, kind of like that's it. Where like people don't need multiple readings generally, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, of human design. They might need follow-ups, right, of different things, but like the reading itself, like chances are that's a one and done. So,
Correct. Yes.
okay. So in that case, this fear of going back to where I was before, do you see how it translates into not just limitation in like the location, but the thing that you seek, which is I'm always in flow and there's always things coming, i.e., there's security there. You're actually creating a false positive of that security.
Yeah, it's a false positive of security by being in my flow. It's security in the now. It's being present. There are good things about it. It's not all bad, but yes,
Of
it's
course.
not secure for the future. Yes.
Correct. Like it is entirely, like you said, it's dependent on the hamster wheel, right? Like
Yes.
you've created a flow much like a mill, right? Like the mill can only operate if the water is flowing through the mill. That's what turns the mill and that's what keeps it going. As soon as
Yes.
that flow stops, like you're done. There's no reserves, there's no batteries, there's no structure around it to multiply.
Yes.
Okay. So how does that make you feel?
Um, I agree, and I genuinely like this notion structure to allow it to multiply. I think then, in a way, when even speaking about it, tuning into it, like, yeah, if I had a bit more of a plan, it doesn't feel bad to me because it's also very familiar, and it's maybe it's part of it as well. But second thing, I think I keep going back to the other thing I said, coaching, which is I think there is still resistance to that, even though we are here and you're coaching me. So I love the concept and I think it's such a beautiful concept. But I think there is some resistance for myself and some sort of, I don't know the perfect word for it, prejudice, not against others, but against myself going that route.
Okay, so it's something that's cool for other people, but not cool for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you tune into your body, what do you feel when you think about you being a coach?
There is there is a resistance and there is immediate, but I'm not a coach. Even
Okay.
though with all the work that I do, it's guiding, it's not too dissimilar in a structure of what happens in a session. It's just a different modality that's used within it. But even so, there is something around me associating myself to that title.
Okay. So let's just zoom out of that one a little bit. How might that be a problem inside of your business?
It relates to creating more sustainable offerings in a way that maybe there is a link that maybe that's the problem, that's the only way I see for it to progress, then that would be the natural next route, because then it would be working more one-on-one, creating specific programs to address a specific type of change, or working with people to really take them on a journey of transformation through using human design as one of the modalities. But then really it would be coaching. So maybe the way they relate to structure is that currently what I see structure being is the one that I'm not comfortable associating myself with yet.
Right. So then just to reflect that back, it's like, okay, if I add structure to my overall business, then there's a fear that I will go through the PTSD again, or the PTSD is the part that's fearful of that. So that's creating this hamster wheel effect where the business isn't sustainable, it isn't secure, and I always have to keep running to maintain it. I always have to be in the flow. The second part of that is if I considered adding coaching to what I do, then the fear is I would add an aspect that does not require me to constantly run. Like the virtue of a longer term container means now I've created structure that's not one off, that I don't have to run on the mill, to not have to run on the hamster wheel to keep going. Right. So it is the exact freak out thing that part of you that's still stuck in the PTSD is like, no, 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 no. Like if we go there, like that's check boxes, that's long term, that's commitment, that's a no bueno situation. Okay. So before I continue, like, how does that land for you?
Yes, that lands.
Okay. Any part of it that doesn't land for
I think in a way, both of these situations, my past corporate life and this, you call them both hamster wheel. Uh, it, it, I understand because I have to do things. They don't feel different. They don't feel the same. Rather, they feel very different. One was exhausting and draining, and just any negative word, it was heavy. And the other one, yes, it's constant doing. It doesn't feel that bad, but it's more if I'm not, if I'm planning the future, where I'm going to be in a year. Not that I have a future trip, but still it would be nice to know that what I'm building now is sustainable. However, it doesn't feel like same type of hamster wheel. So that's the only part which doesn't land 100%.
Beautiful. And I actually agree with you 100%. If I didn't communicate that appropriately, that's on me. But that's exactly how I saw it as well. The hamster wheel is it's one thing, and it's not a negative in the sense that like I don't like the feeling of being here. It's the dependency of it. It is like you cannot run a marathon for life. Right? Like at some point
Yeah,
you kind of have to take a break, right?
yeah,
And during that break, there has to be something to maintain the lifestyle and the finances and whatever. Like that's a structure piece.
yeah.
So yes, I 100% agree with you on that. And then with the coaching, it's not about bringing that to the now and saying that's another hamster wheel situation. I agree with you. It's not. It's actually it's the future part of it, and it's the resistance part that I'm alluding to here and I'm speaking to. It is currently like if I were to add it, a part of me feels like that would make the business more sustainable, right? So the part that I'm speaking to here in observation is if I make the business more sustainable, that's a risk of adding structure, which then risks more of the PTSD stuff, right? It is a fearful thought to the part of you that wants to keep you safe from going through that part again. So does that distinction make sense?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Thanks for
perfect.
clarifying.
Yeah, no worries. And absolutely anything I say, if you're like, this is bullshit, call me out on it 110%. So that's not an issue. Um, so if you take a look at like the coaching piece, right? So if I was a coach, then I would have a more sustainable business. If you zoom out of that even further, how is that a problem for you mid to long term?
Which part is the problem for me mid to long term? The fact that
So the
I
resistance to adding the coaching or not being clear about what you should or should not add there.
yeah, it's the same problem. It leads to the same result, that in essence that makes me not create offerings that are sustainable and put it out there. So both of these things combined in mid to long term mean that I'm continuing to do the same thing.
Okay. And define the same thing in your words. Like, what's the actual consequence of that?
I am working on readings with new clients. I am participating or organizing workshops. I am guest speaking. I am, I'm attending events. So that's what I'm doing now. And because if I don't do that, then it's going to be very quiet in my business. So I'm doing that, which I'm enjoying. But I just feel like in order for it to go to the next level, for it to grow, because there is only a certain capacity unless I start raising prices exponentially. That's one way of doing it. Of course, another way would to create longer term products offerings that then would make it less volatile.
Got it. So if you were to extrapolate that further, and instead of just looking at the impact to yourself, right? Because in this instance, okay, like less stability, I'm capped at the amount of money that I can make. I cannot really move away from where it is that I want to live if I choose to live somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
What about the people that you're serving? How do these fears and hesitations affect the people you are serving or you could potentially serve?
It's a good question. Never really asked myself that. Yeah, it's very much location based, first of all, so I can reach less people this way. The ones that do, the ones that I do connect with, and if they wanted to explore the modality further or are going through change, I can only offer them support and guidance within the session, workshop, or that limited amount of time. And even if they needed more support, I wouldn't be able to give it to them because I don't have a structure for that. So these are two immediate ways how it comes to mind.
Right. So the people that I'm serving, I not only am able to serve them in a limited way, but I'm also able to reach less people because it's dependent on the location. And if we were to take that even further, serving them in a limited way, like I've had my human design done and like I did it, but like I don't really like if you ask me like what is this, I have no idea, right? So it's like even if somebody has an aha moment, all they really got is like oh, this is like cool awareness. I now understand myself better. Have the problems that they've actually come to you for gone away as a result of that awareness?
For me, it did that. So I think it's very personal. Everyone has a very personal way of accepting information that comes their way. So for me, for example, talking from my personal experience and a lot of my clients, it can happen that actually what we know, we are very connected to our intuition. And sometimes we just need that aha moment to actually make the change and then move in the direction where we are going. So I do trust in people's ability to connect on themselves and their intuition. And sometimes they just silence it in a way that I can't hear it. So it does clear that path to really listening to it, but not for everyone. For some people, myself including, a lot of my friends, clients, people around me. So, but of course, it's only that one meeting, right? So having one conversation with someone can really impact them. Any conversation can impact people in a way where actually that becomes a pivotal moment for them to make the change. So and I'm not limiting this to human design is the only way. anything can have that click that actually, thank you so much, you helped me. Maybe we have one conversation and then I go away and I have that click, and that's great, isn't it? It's already a change. So
110%.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that part doesn't land entirely, but if you could repeat the question in a way that maybe I can answer it better, then that would be
No,
great.
it's a very legit answer. And I agree with you 100%. Like some people just need the awareness, and that could be the catalyst for them to do many different and better things. So then I guess the follow-up question is, okay, so what percentage fall into that category, like the experience that you had, and what percentage fall into this is cool, and then like there's a not really a major change?
I think it would go 50-50. The thing is that it's hard to collect the stats because it's a one-off conversation.
Sure. But even if we assume 50-50,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, right, if in the last year, I don't know, whatever, you served 100 people, 50% of them are not better off because there was no support off of the aha moment that you gave them. Like that value was great, and I totally can see like there's a passion when you speak about what you do. So like that part's clear that you deliver all that you can in that session. But it's like out of 100 people, 50, even as a guess, let's just be conservative, 40 people are underserved, and you've subsequently been underpaid. So what lands for you there?
The fact that actually, if it doesn't land with people, that actually I would still be more interested with working with those that did, and then actually guide them through it. So I think with anything that's like it also requires work from people who are being served. So I would actually say in that case, I'm more interested in follow-throughs and working, doing deeper work with people that actually took something away from it. Because then it
Beautiful.
means it's also not the time,
Yeah. And
not
that's
the
a
place, not the
beautiful,
person.
yes. So, and I guess what I'm getting at here is like, that's a beautiful level of clarification, right? Given the choice of deciding who I may or may not coach, what actually lights me up is not serving the people that can't operate on their own from awareness, but taking the people who have an awareness and then accelerating that to an even other level. Great. Like now that's the other 50 people that are left underserved, right? But you see how like that resistance to like, I am not a coach, right away cuts you off in terms of the possibilities of what you can explore to what might be next, right? Because like you have a beautiful skill set that is underutilized without this apparent structure. And now it's actually rippling to the exponential results people can get from working with you. Not like, let's catch up and get to a point where you have the implementation from the realization of the reading, but it's you're already on your way after the reading. Now we're going to put fire or gasoline on that fire, right? How does that land for you?
It's a very useful perspective, and it does land. What I am wondering is, why do I have this resistance to actually the label itself? There is something in there which I am not sure where it's coming from, what it is, but there is something in that association, and it's not just commitment issue, I believe.
I agree with you. I do think it's deeper than just a commitment. And, this is exactly what I do in the Up Level Mind program. Like this is the kind of stuff we identify and then eliminate. But I do agree with you there. There is the PTSD from what commitment and structure means in the next iteration of your business. There is the resistance, the fear, the whatever of the label of coach, which is now blocking really the realization of what the next iteration could be. Both of those things combined really right now create the dependency of your business to have you running it all the time, the lacking structure and stability, and really limiting your growth.
Yeah.
So what lands for you there?
How clarity again, and I said this before, that it zooms in on two particular things, which I, in a way, am aware of, but haven't really actively addressed. So I signed up to, agreed to this podcast recording, knowing that there is something that's stopping me from growth. So thanks for zooming in into these two seemingly unrelated topics that come together in a very clear way for me right now.
You're very welcome. And I'm glad you brought up the awareness piece, because this actually was one of the things I was going to come back to. It's abundantly clear you're very self-aware. Like, if I reflect back something, you right away know the 10 other pieces that it relates back to. You have a very succinct and precise way of speaking about your inner experience. So I know this is not your first foray into inner work, right? That's abundantly clear. The part that I also wanted to come back to is you have this level of self-awareness. And even if I've helped you make some connections that maybe you weren't able to make before, fundamentally, you were aware of the general patterns even before we had this conversation. So what do you think is the hurdle for you to implement on the awareness that you naturally possess?
I think now, if I answer this question, we can go start the recording again and I will say all the same things. It's the commitment, and it's being afraid that it's gonna limit me in a way where my life becomes very planned. I am back into my drive, and not that there is anything at all wrong with drive and ambition and everything else, but it has led me to places that were not favoring my health. I think there is definitely what stops me, to answer it shortly. What stops me is my fear of past repeating itself.
Got it. So thank you for sharing that. Again, beautifully articulated as always. So that just signifies there's another layer here, right? Not only is it stopping me from expanding my business, not only is it stopping me from serving better and more people, not only is this fear stopping me from making more money and stability in my business, but it's actually denying me my own gifts, right? I knew the essence of what we spoke about today, but the fear is so strong. This part of me is so protective that it's cutting me off from the implementation and the self-trust of my awareness, right? To the point where it brings us, let's just say here, which is also fine. Like I need support to move through that, right? But I only bring that up to highlight to you how insidious it actually is, how many parts of your life it actually affects, and how it's wrapped itself up in this nice sounding bow of, well, I just like to be in the flow. Like it's such a beautiful thing, and it's much nicer than it was before, which is true. But it's like, that's the wolf in sheep's clothing. It is hijacking a beautiful part of you to keep you from really addressing the root causes of all of these things. So again, how does all that land?
Yeah, very nicely put. I think My business actually is called And Also, so it's combining the contradictions. I think I have to take myself through my own school and say that I can be in my flow and also structured. And in a way, that's what you're saying as well, that actually it's not enough to know it. It's actually need to work through the fears of what might be blocking me here to live a life that's still aligned and still feels like ease, but implement processes, structures, grow business in a way that is also structured.
Absolutely. So yeah, in that case, if you can just then summarize in your own words, what did you come into this conversation thinking was your business problems, and what did you identify as the head trash that's actually causing it?
So I came in knowing that I'm at the point where I do want to create a sustainable business that will still feel aligned and feel organic to me, whilst knowing what tomorrow might look like, in a nutshell. And the challenges now I identified, what's stopping me from doing that is my post-traumatic stress disorder after my burnout and fear of past repeating itself. My questionable relationship to the label of coach, which also then it might mean that if I commit to it, then I'm that. So there might be still a commitment issue there. And what you beautifully shed light on is that actually by not doing that, I not only selfishly I'm not growing my business, but also I'm not helping people in the way I could help them if I had structures in place where we could connect on a deeper level and work together more long term.
As expected, beautifully summarized. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, it was a pleasure kind of walking you through that process and awareness. So thank you for that. So yeah, to close us off, floor is yours to let everybody know, where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Sure. Thank you so much also for your time and effort. And yeah, I see you also put a lot of passion into it. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I am on Instagram at hello.gel. And also my website, incidentally, is called andalso.space. So you can find me there as well.
Beautiful. Well, as always, we'll put that in the show notes. But Jelena, thank you very much for being on. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Drasko.